Hello, everyone. My name is Jen Rieger-Murphy. I'm the Vice Chair of the RIdley Democratic Committee, and we are here to talk about who is on the ballot this coming election, which is Tuesday, November 7th of this year. Tonight's agenda is to orient people who are working the polls, particularly with a focus on the greeters who are handing out the sample ballots and also the poll watchers, just to orient them with who is on the ballot and to just give you a brief overview and orientation to these candidates. So who is on the Democratic ballot this election? It's a municipal election, so that means that we have judge races. Some of them are in the highest courts of the state. So we have the Supreme Court, the Superior Court. We have two people running for vacancies there. We also have Commonwealth Court and the Court of Common Pleas. We also have the County Council. We have three people that are running for re-election. We have our district attorney also running for re-election. And some of the most important races are actually happening pretty locally. We have three people running for our school board in RIdley, and we have two people running in the Board of Commissioners. So let's take a look at the sample ballots. And these are things that will be handed out to voters outside the polls. The goal of the greeter, the primary goal, is to get the sample ballot in as many hands as possible because it's a general election. People of either party can vote across party lines, so we can have Republicans voting for Democrats as well. And the more votes that we get, especially in some of these local elections, the more important it will be for our candidates to come out victorious. So we are asking that if you are working the polls in RIdley and you're working in the two races that are for the commissioner, and you will know that because the candidates will be there and you'll meet them. We have one in Ward 3, Jack Praisner, and we have Steve Strasdis in Ward 6. If you're offering the sample ballot to voters, we'd ask that you primarily start with orienting them to let them know that that's a really important race and that they need the votes for those candidates. The other race that's really important is school board at the local level. So we have three people running there. You'll see their names are Janet Diorio, Meg Comboy, and John Kohavi. So these are the prime races you want to orient people to. Of course, we want to encourage everyone to get a vote, to fill out the ballot from top to bottom, but we know sometimes people start at the top and then they don't always vote for the local races. So this sample ballot does not have Republicans on it. It's just the sample ballot that we give out that shows the people that are on the Democratic ticket that we would like people to vote for. These have all been endorsed at the county level and by the RIdley Dems as well. There is no straight party voting. We've been through enough elections where I think people are familiar with that. But if you are poll greeting or poll watching for the first time in RIdley, you can't vote just one box and say, I want to vote for all Republicans. You actually have to fill in each candidate's slot. There is a larger ballot that people can reference that actually looks exactly like the ballot that they will see when they go inside. And that's generally posted somewhere outside the polling place or in a window of the polling location so people can go up to it and reference it and see the difference. Now you'll notice there's two pictures on this slide. The first one we've already covered. The one farthest to the right is about judge retention. I would recommend not spending any time on that unless somebody comes up to you and says, what is this about? We, again, want to just focus on the commissioner, the school board, and just, selecting the Democrats. This is a question about retention of judges. So judges don't run for re-election once they're elected. They serve a length of term, and then they are positioned on the ballot to be asked if you want to retain them or not. So at the county level, all the chairs of the different committees in the township and the county, they met to decide whether or not we would just vote to retain the one Democrat and not the Republicans, and that's exactly what we did. So that's the recommendation from the vote that we had at the county level. But really, it's just not worth explaining to voters. If you have 5 or 10 seconds with them, the most important thing we want to highlight are the school board and the commissioner races. But we all voted as a group, and the majority voted to retain the Democratic judge, which you'll see the yes filled in there, and the no for the Republicans. But really, if someone goes and votes to retain them all, it's not the end of the world. It's just way too much to get into for this election. So this slide shows what the actual ballot looks like. So there's a lot of text here, and it's showing all the different candidates, whether they be Republican or Democrat. The Democrats are on the top of each candidate block. So when you see, like, for instance, the Justice of the Supreme Court, the Democratic candidate is above the Republican. And that has to do with just, the governor being a Democratic governor. So Democrats show up first in a general election. So I took a screenshot of the actual ballot just to kind of zone in and show you a nuance here that you don't need to explain to people, but it's just interesting to know. So we had several candidates on the Republican side that cross-filed in the primary, which means they got enough signatures from Democrats to show up on the Democratic ballot and the Republican ballot. So there were three people rather, that got enough votes from each side to be listed as Dem and Republican on the general ballot. So that's kind of confusing. I don't know that anyone's going to come up and ask a poll greeter this question, because they're going to see the ballot inside and it's going to look different than what we've been sending them. But it's just really interesting that and confusing that some of these Republicans actually have the word Dem next to their name. So those are Christine McMenamin, Amy Lynn Nail, and Dave Showalter. But the three true Democrats are the three listed at the top. So we're just going to take a quick look at our candidates that we have. So at the municipal level, the commissioners are Jack Praisner. He is running for Ward 3. And Stephen Strasdis is running in Ward 6. They've been primarily focusing their campaign on the spending in the township. A lot of the township salaries are 6 figures. They're quite high, and they're definitely above the national average. They're above the average of most townships of their size that are comparable and nearby. For example, the top salary as township manager is like $170,000. And neighboring ones are around 90. So it's quite egregious how high these salaries are. And the question becomes, can we take a look at that to see how we could potentially spend in a different way while also offering competitive salaries? They also are running on transparency, because right now it's an all Republican board and it's very hard to find information. So, they want to just be very transparent with their constituents. Communication is also something that can be lacking at times, so they want to bring more communication to the residents. And they've been talking about senior tax relief. So if we're able to look at how we spend money and maybe spend it more wisely, maybe there could be a way to find better ways of using that money. This QR code will actually take you to the facts and figures that I had mentioned briefly about the salaries if you want to dig a little deeper. Again, you don't need to really know any of these things. It's really just to orient you to what the local issues are in Ridley. And the exciting fact is that we actually have 2 Democrats running for these positions. The last time that somebody was on the board that was a Democrat, I believe, was 30 years ago. So it's really, really historic, and it'll be exciting if you are poll greeting in that area. Like I said before, we have 3 candidates running for school board. We have Meg, Janet, and John, all very qualified candidates. We want to remind poll greeters to point these races out on the ballot, and that if someone is really interested in just voting for Democrats, that they only vote for these 3, because the other people that are listed on the ballot are Republicans. Here are the endorsed statewide candidates for judge. So we have Daniel McCaffrey for the Supreme Court. We have Timika Lane and Jill Beck for Superior Court, and we have Matt Wolf for Commonwealth Court. Now, anyone that's involved in politics knows how important the courts are these days. Especially Daniel McCaffrey's race. He's running against someone who has been endorsed by anti-abortion groups. There's a lot of decisions that can come across that court in terms of voting rights as well. As of 2025, there's going to be 2 retention questions about judges at that level as well. So it could shift the court to Republican. It's currently Democrat now. So of all the races to mention, it's really the school board, the commissioner, and the Supreme Court, although all of these races are important in electing Democrats. Here are the endorsed county level candidates, starting with the Court of Common Pleas and District Attorney. So we have Rachel Ezelberry. She is running for Court of Common Pleas. And then we have Jack Stolzheimer, who is our current district attorney and is running for re-election. We also have 3 very qualified county council representatives. They have served their first term and they are running for re-election. We have Christine Ruther, Elaine Schaefer, and Monica Taylor. Okay, so that concludes the orientation to the sample ballot and the candidate information. We do have some other trainings available. We have a 10-minute poll greeter orientation, and then we have a poll watcher orientation as well. So if you need links to those, please email us at ridleydems@gmail.com, and we can send that over to you. I want to just take a quick moment to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. You are so important to the work of the day. It makes a huge difference that you're there to greet voters and to hand out the ballot. It's a big deal to be there supporting us as a poll watcher on Election Day as well. Just on behalf of the candidates, the Democratic Party, and the Ridley Dems, thank you so much for being involved in this process and serving on Election Day. And we will see you there. Take care.